Om Sadashivasamarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om. We are in the initial part of the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Moksha Sannyasa Yoga, where Krishna is elaborating 6 topics that he has spoken about or selected, and he's discussing each of them from Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas. We will begin, and the second part will be on Karma Yoga, where Swadharma, where Krishna will introduce about how karma, if you go by your swadharma, by your inclination, it becomes more natural, it becomes a flow. So, Sudha Vani, you're the opener for today. Sudha, please.
Hari Om, Doctor. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In the previous class, we have seen what is Sattvika Sukham and Rajasika Sukham. In this shloka, Lord Krishna is telling about Tamasika Sukham. The shloka goes like this. Yadagre chanubandhe cha sukham mohanamaatmanaha nidralasya pramadottam tattamasamudahrutam. Meaning, tamasic happiness is said to be that which deludes the mind in the beginning and in the end, and which is born out of sleep, indolence, and negligence. So, this Tamasika Sukham is based on the philosophy ignorance is bliss. Nidralasya pramadottam. Sleep is the source of Ananda. These persons who continue to be lazy and enjoy that Ananda are very careless, negligent, and not bothered whatever happens. That is, whether dharma is there or adharma is there, whether Rama rules or Ravana rules, nothing matters to them. These people are generally fatalistic people. They do not accept free will. They conclude that everything is predetermined. Bhagavan has written everything on the forehead and everything happens accordingly. It cannot be erased at all. We are all puppets in the hands of the Lord. So, fatalism is an ideal philosophy for these tamasic people, whereas a rajasic person is ambitious and works hard as he wants to earn money. A sattvic person also puts forth the effort because he is interested in sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, chitta shuddhi, guru prapti, and gnana prapti. Both rajasic and sattvic persons use free will, unlike tamasic person, as he does not believe in it. And therefore, his life is spent on nidra, alasya, pramada, that is, sleep, laziness, and negligence. Here, Swami Paramarthananda quotes another verse which says, noble people spend their lives in the study of Kavyam and Shastram as they derive Ananda from these things. Whereas Murkhas, that is the tamasic people, either they are addicted to something or busy complaining about many things around. So what is the nature of this happiness? It will dullen our intellect and therefore Atmana Mohanam, thinking power and discrimination power deteriorates. Atmana here means mind, specifically the intellect. It deludes. And when does it delude the intellect? Agrecha anubandhecha, that is before, after, and during the enjoyment of tamasic pleasure. So throughout it deludes a person, and such a deluding ananda is tamasic ananda. In the process, he might have led a happy life, but of what use? The entire human life becomes a waste. We have heard, Jentunam Narajanma Durlabham. This human birth is difficult to obtain, and having obtained, this life is not properly utilized, as animals also enjoy these pleasures, that is, ahara, nidra, bhaya, sambhogaha. And the end result is, he will be born as an animal. So this is Tamasika Sukham. And our aim should be from Tamasika Sukham, gradually go to Rajasika Sukham, where one can enjoy the worldly pleasures in a dharmic way laid by Vedas. that is, as per Vedic injunctions, and be ready for Sattvic Sukham. Thus, the journey is from Tamasic to Rajasic, Rajasic to Sattvic, and the height of Sattvic Sukham is Atma Gnana Janya Anandaha, Atmanyeva Atmana Tushtaha. So, satisfied in the self through the joy of the self. Hari Om. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Sudhavani. Very nice coverage of this particular verse. We should always remember, as you said, our whole goal is to move from tamas to rajas to sattva, and of course to being a gunatita. This is the danger. We always feel that we are referring to someone else, but nidra, alasya, and pramada, excessive sleep, laziness, and not being meticulous in whatever you're doing, being negligent, is a tendency which can happen to all of us. And this is the warning that Krishna gives us. We go to Vani Bhaskar for the next verse, please.
Hari Om, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is the 40th verse of the 18th chapter. Na tadasti prithivyaam va divi deveshu va punaha sattvam prakritijair muktam edebihi syatribhat punaihi. So the word meaning goes, na is no, tat is that, asti exists, prithivyaam on earth, va is or, divi the higher celestial abodes, deveshu amongst the celestial gods, punaha is again, sattvam existence, prakriti jaihi born of material nature, muktam is liberated, yet is that, ebihi from the influence of these, syat is, tribhi guna, three modes of material nature. In the last few verses, Lord talks about the three gunas, the sattva, rajas and tamas and their effects. In this verse, he summarizes the total influence of the three gunas of Prakriti or the universe. Shri Krishna says there is no being existing either here or among the demigods, that is the devatas in the higher lokas, which is free from these three modes of material nature. In this verse, sattva means existing living beings. It should not be taken as a sattva guna. We see in this universe, we see the plurality and the various divisions. And this is all because of the three gunas. And Shri Krishna says, nothing and no one is an exception to this. We must understand that everything and everyone is made up of the combination of these three gunas. A non-living thing also has gunas. For example, a stone or a rock is totally predominant with tamas. And every living being is a combination of three gunas. Through this, we understand that the Vyavaharika world is just like a big painting made it's made using the three colors Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. One of the Upanishad, the Shvetasvatara Upanishad says, the colors associated with Sattva is white, Rajas is red and Tamas is black. And the qualities associated with Sattva is goodness and peace, Rajas is passion and activity, and Tamas is ignorance and non-movement. If we look at the universe, everything can be put under these three categories. The non-living things has the tamas as the predominant one. And living things like the plants and trees, they are also mostly with tamas because they do not move. And in animals, it is a combination, and within humans, people who are sattvic, rajasic and tamasic. So in this verse, Krishna says that all beings as well as the devatas are well within this framework of sattva, rajas and tamas. In this context, I would like to just bring a larger picture of Vedanta. The goal of Vedanta is to understand that one's real nature is Nirguna Parabrahma. The gunas belong to the Panchakoshas and the Jagat. And I, the Atma, is Gunatita, that is beyond all the three gunas. So in this verse, we need to understand that the gunas which belong to the Prakriti is being discussed, and I, the Purusha, is Nirguna beyond these three gunas. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you, Vani. Nice again, very nice explanation, because essentially we are all gunatitas. Remember that Jnana Mudra, where we dissociate with the three fingers, which are Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. And being the painter and an artist, you brought in the nice three colors of white for Sattva, red for Rajas, and black for Tamas. We have two Vanis and two Bhaskars today. So after Vani Bhaskar, we have Dr. Bhaskar. Dr. Bhaskar, please. Is Dr. Bhaskar there? If Dr. Bhaskar is not there, shall we proceed? Because this is just an introductory verse which talks about the new topic that we are now going. There is a shift now where Krishna has now talking about Karma Yoga. He's summarizing Karma Yoga now. If I'm just waiting if Dr. Bhaskar is waiting to come in, or we can give him some time.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead, Dr. Bhaskar.
Hello, sir.
Go ahead.
I'm here.
Please go ahead.
Can you hear me, sir? There was some problem, sir.
No problem. Go ahead.
I was not getting connected. So, coming to the verse 1841, general statement, that is, there is nothing in the whole universe which is devoid of three gunas, even among devatas and 14 lokas also. That is, tribai gunai muktam sattvam naasti. That means no entity is free from three gunas. Even non-living things is in tamasic vastu only. That is why consciousness is not reflected in these matters. The three gunas are carried from the original cause of the creation, called the Prakriti or Maya, which is not only an earthly entity, can be extended to all the 14 lokas. So everything is gone by three gunas. So if one understands three gunas, one can guide life appropriately. This knowledge is useful for spiritual sadhana also. So with that, now Sri Krishna, from the verse 41 to 49 onwards, Sri Krishna summarizes two central themes of Bhagavad Gita. Once again, that is in the light of guna knowledge, that is Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga, in simple terms, is a religious lifestyle to prepare or purify the mind for gaining Jnana Yogyata Prapti. That is the most important thing. That's why Karma Yoga is introduced again in 18th chapter. And anytime we do something to the creation, we find that day a sense of fulfillment. Therefore, Karma Yoga, leading a purposeful, useful life, is required for the initial stages of growth. That is the first 50 to 60 years of life. To enter with a pure mind to the second stage of Nivritti or Jnana Yoga Pradhana. So in Karma Yoga part, what is gained is not important. What we give back to creation, what you have renounced, that is, the verse goes like this: Na karmana na prajaye dane na tyage naike amrutatva manasa. Clearly says we have to transcend from bogi to yogi to tyagi. That is the destination for a sadhaka. So one has to choose a field and contribute according to the capacity, and let the field be chosen by your inclination and aptitude, and do something which is based on gunas. That is the dominant one. And already we know that entire humanity is divided into four types. That is SRT, RST, RTS, and TRS, which I will not go further. With this background, we come to the verse proper 41. The verse goes like this: Brahmana Kshatriya Vishayam Shudranam Cha Parantapa Karmani Pravibhaktani Swabhava Prabhavai Gunai. So Karmani Pravibhaktani, four types of professions are allotted by Vedas themselves. That is the four types of field of activity, four types of fields of services, or four slots are given. So that through profession, I can contribute to the society and feel fulfilled 100%. So Krishna says, profession, Pravibhaktani, has been allotted by Vedas. It is well known in Purusha Suktam also. So it says, individual himself has four organs, which can be equated to the four groups. That is the head for a Brahmana, which taking care of the knowledge activity, hands to Kshatriya for defense activity, thighs to Vaishya, who supports the individual to stand, because economy has to grow and the country has to survive. Legs for Shudra, carrying individual from one place to the other place. So Vedas says all the four activities are equally sacred. Therefore, karmani pravibhaktani. How to choose a profession? According to the tradition, best is guna norms. That is going by swabhava is the best. Swabhava prabhav gunaha. Here, swabhava has got three meanings. First meaning is it is born out of prakriti or maya. Predominant guna in an individual, it can be sattva, rajo or tamaguna, and the manifestation of early samskaras, that is the impression of the previous births. So every moment of present life is controlled by our previous samskaras. So do the allotted karmas and be proud of what every profession you take up. Karma based joy is not risk at all. That's what Swamiji says, because we offer all the karma palas to the Lord. Yat yat karma karomi tat tat akilam shambho pravaradhanam. So what happens if we do not follow this karma yoga? As Veda says, all activities are equally sacred. Never one profession is superior over the other. If we do not follow swadharma as prescribed, mind will get deluded. That means we stay back in the impure form. Imagine 25 years you are in a field which you not enjoy, the personality gets shattered. Therefore, karma yoga, leading a purposeful, useful life, is required for the initial growth, that is in the first 50 to 60 years. After that, mind starts working faster. Without chit shuddhi, one cannot attain the jnana yoga prapti. That's why with chit shuddhi, one has to transcend from karma yoga to jnana yoga. As today's early morning bulletin also with Viveka Chudamani, karma is not to get material growth, it is for chit shuddhi. It's a valid point. Therefore, Krishna says, "Oh Parantapa, the destroyer of the enemies, swabhava pravayvir gunaha." Based on the gunas, karmani pravibhaktani. Professions are categorized in 4 types. That is Brahmana karma, Kshatriya karma, Vaishya karma, and Shudra karma. What are these professions? Krishna is going to define in the following verses. Hari Om, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bhaskar, for a nice introduction. We now go to Brahmana Karma. Dr. Anupama, please.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Verse 42. Shamo damaha tapa shaucham kshanti arjavameva cha jnanam vijnanam astikyam brahma karma swabhavajam. Here there are 2 words, swadharma and swabhavajam. Karma yoga sadhana is a means of contributing to the society and the creation, which we now understand as Vishwarupa Ishvara. This contribution is possible by taking up a profession. Krishna says that the primary criteria for the choice of a profession should be swabhava or guna. We could call this inclination or prakriti, therefore swabhavajam. Swadharma means effortless action, wherein one's intentions, speech, and actions are in alignment. What is the flow state? When swabhavaja karma is performed as swadharma, the karta state merges with the bhokta state. Kaya, vak, and manaha are in alignment. This is called arjavam. One experiences advaitam in the vyavaharika prapancha. We feel our best, we perform our best, there is total absorption, total focus, everything else disappears. The sense of self and anxiety vanish. On entering a deep now, even time and space disappear. A paradigm shift happens. What is Brahmana karma? Preservation and propagation of the scriptural wealth of our tradition, which is called Ashta Dasha Vidya Sthanani. This includes the 4 Vedas, the 6 Veda Angas called Shiksha, Kalpam, Vyakaranam, Nirukta, Chanda, Jyotishyam. Next, Mimamsa, Nyaya Vistara, the Puranams, the Dharma Shastra, and finally the 4 Upavedas called Ayurveda, Dhanurveda, Gandharva, and Arthashastra. Not to mention the master over Sanskrit language, which in itself is a Herculean task. A Brahmana is not only a dedicated to learning, but he's also has to be a good teacher. To become an Acharya, he should practice what he preaches. His lifestyle should emulate the fact that lasting peace and happiness is an inner state independent of the physical comfort and material wealth one possesses. What are the qualities of a Brahmana? First, samaha, calmness of the mind; damaha, sense control; tapaha is austerity, a life of aparigraha; shaucham, purity, external and internal; kshanti, physical and mental preparedness to withstand discomfort; arjavam means integrity of vak, kaya and manas. Jnanam is apara vidya, that is material sciences. A Brahman dedicates his entire life to learning. Vijnanam is paravidya, atma jnanam. Astikyam means faith in Vedas as a pramana. A Brahmana has two visions. First, pratyaksha pramana, by the five sense organs to reveal the material world. Next, Veda pramana, which reveals the apaurusheya or spiritual world. An astika is a person who uses the Veda as a sixth sense organ. A Brahmana, therefore, has to be an astika, and he has to attempt to convert his society into an astika one. How does a Brahmana earn his livelihood? A Brahmana shares his wisdom with the society, and the society, in turn, should protect him and cater to his needs. Finally, this Brahma karma should be svabhavajam, of natural interest and not enforced upon the person. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anupama. A very nice and a lucid presentation. And I would welcome everyone to make slides if you wish and send it well on time. So that we can have a better quality of presentation even for our Monday, Wednesday classes. Now, this is so important that the work that you do should be something that you are naturally inclined to, and therefore there is no, it becomes a flow. There is a sense of akarta because it becomes so effortless, and when it is akarta, it is abhokta. You will see from the fourth chapter, actually the Karma Yoga started in the second chapter. It was elaborated in the third chapter. In the fourth chapter, Krishna gave the crux of Karma Yoga as inaction in action. And you will see that came again in the fifth chapter. And in the 18th chapter, in the early part, from verses 13 to about 19, again it was about inaction and action. And through Swadharma, Krishna again brings about this, how our action should be so effortless. Either we love what we do, or we should do what we love. So that is the message here. Vasanta, can you take on Rajasic? What is the Kshatriya? I think this was the second one.
Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Now let us look at the duties of a Kshatriya. This is verse number 43. Shauryam tejo dhrutir dakshyam yuddhe chapya palayanam Danam Ishvara Bhavascha Kshatram Karma Svabhavajam. I will skip the Padavibhaga and word meanings because I will be covering every word in this verse in my explanation. The meaning of the verse itself is heroism, power, will, resourcefulness, not running away from battle, generosity, and overlordship are the duties of the Kshatriyas, born of their nature. Swami Paramathananda has pointed out clearly that the spiritual path consists of first doing Karma Yoga, obtaining Jnana Yogyata, and only then doing Jnana Yoga. Karma Yoga should be done with an Ishvara Arpana Bhava, and in order to do this comfortably, a person must find a profession that aligns best with his or her own nature. The professions are categorized based on the qualities and nature of a person, and the profession we are now covering is that of a king, ruler, or soldier, a Kshatriya. Swami Paramathananda points out that a Kshatriya has to perform the following duties. He has to maintain law and order of society. He has to protect dharma. He has to punish adharmic people. And if required, he has to be ready to enter the battlefield. And Krishna now shows us the gunas that are necessary in a kshatriya. So the first one is shauryam. Shauryam means heroism. And it comes from the word shura or hero. So it includes valor, prowess, might, bravery, and strength, all very critical strengths in the battlefield. Tejaha in this context means fiery energy or passion or vigor. It is literally the drive that helps a kshatriya overpower the enemy and not be cowed down. Dhruti is resolution or a strong willpower plus fortitude. We covered the three types of dhriti in the last class, if you remember. Dhriti and teja together imply an indomitable spirit, which we know is the biggest asset on a battlefield. Now, next one is daksham, which means having daksha, which is a combination of ability, fitness, mental power, resourcefulness, expertise, and talent. All the well-honed qualities that a skilled warrior would need, plus the ability to take quick decisions. For a king or soldier, alertness and timeliness in decision-making can make a life or death difference. Swami Paramarthananda points out that this quality is very critical in the corporate world too, where situations change rapidly. Palayanam means flee or run away. So yuddhe apalayanam is not running away from the battlefield. Having the ability to endure till victory is achieved, and also the willingness to fight to the end for a cause. All of us know exactly why Krishna lists this quality when talking to Arjuna. The whole reason for the Bhagavad Gita is this, right? So Danam is the next one, and it is giving, which is a very, very important quality for a king because his subjects' lives depend on his generosity. He is the one who gives grants to the artists and the brahmanas to uphold arts, culture, and education. And the final one is Ishvara Bhava. Ishvara Bhava is lordliness or magnetic personality, the type of lord-like personality that creates bhaya and bhakti in the subjects. A kshatriya has to be a leader, and he should have the self-confidence that can inspire confidence in fainter hearts. He has to have a larger-than-life personality that, as Swami Chinmayananda says, wafts around a fragrance of brilliance and dynamism, electrifying the atmosphere around him. And all these qualities that we are talking about should be innate or swabhavajam in a kshatriya. So recapping again, courage, vigor, resolution, skill, non-flight from battle, generosity, and lordliness are the duties of the kshatriyas, born of their own nature. As Sir S. Radhakrishnan puts it beautifully, kshatriyas have the qualities which enable them to adapt spiritual truths to the requirements of action. Hari Om.
Thank you, Vasanta. That was another nice presentation. We had all nice presentations today. We come to the final one, Dr. Srinivas Rao.
Yes, sir. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Krushi Gauraksha Vanijyam Vaishya Karma Swabhavajam Paricharyatmakam Karma Shudrasyapi Swabhavajam. Here the grammar is relatively easy, sir. First word is Krushi. Krushi means agriculture. Second word is Gauraksha. This is Goraksha. One who does Goraksha is called Gauraksha. This is a Tadditanta Pratyaya. Like Vasudeva is father of Krishna. Vasudeva is son Krishna. That is son of Vasudeva is Vasudeva. Vainateya. Vinatayaha putraha. Vinati's son is Vainateya. Similarly, one who protects cows, Go Rakshanam, who does that. This is called as Taditanta Pratyaya in Sanskritam. So this is Gaurakshya Vanijjam, one who does Kriya Vikrayam, that is trade. This is Vanijjam. Vaishya is saying karma means kartavyam. Swabhavajam, that is nature, as it has already been explained. Paricharyatmakam, paricharati, one who keeps roaming around. Paricharati, paricharyatmakam, one who does the services. Karma kartavyam. Shudrasyapi, Shudrasya api. Here this api seems to be important here. The Vyasacharya has used Shudrasyapi. Shudrasyapi means even Shudras can do. That is the meaning of Shudrasyapi. He is not telling only Shudras has to do this work. So one of the commentator has specifically mentioned that Vyasacharya has used this api only to include that, only to say that not necessarily that only this Paricharyatmajam karma should be done only by Shudras, that can be done by others as well. That is the meaning of api here. So Abhavajam is nature. So coming to the first line, that is Krushi Gauraksha Vanijjam. Here in today's world, we see that only this Vanijjam people, we are calling them as Vaishyas. But the definition of agricultural as well as cattle, rearing of the cattle, of course, this may not be any more relevant nowadays, because those days cattle were a very important livestock and they were a good source of income to the family. So this may be going away, but doing agriculture is also a Vaishya. So most of us, I think, doctors' families or many of us come from agricultural families. So we come under Vaishya category according to Bhagavad Gita. So this is about this Vaishya karma. And so based on here we have already discussed that based on the gunas, the varnas has been allotted. So Sattva Guna Pradhana is Brahmana. So they have also mentioned secondary gunas. Those who have Sattva Guna Pradhana with the secondary guna of Rajas is called a Brahmana. So Rajo Guna Sampanna. These two are categorized under Kshatriya and Vaishya. So both of them have Rajo Guna Pradhanam. But in Kshatriyas, the secondary guna is Sattva. Whereas in Vaishya, the secondary guna is Tamas. So this is the difference between Kshatriya and Vaishya. And Shudra is, the primary guna is Tamo Guna, secondary is Rajas. This is how it is based on this. And unfortunately, in some movies or some areas, the Panchama Varna has been described, which does not belong to our religion. Hindu religion or our scriptures have never told about this Panchama Varna. The so-called untouchables have never been described. And there is nothing like untouchability in Hinduism. This was probably, we don't know, somehow, unfortunately, it was in vogue for probably a few hundred years. It may not be more than 500 years. This is not an age-old custom. So there is no Panchama Varnam. So also another thing what we can understand here is this, to become a Brahmin was the most toughest in to become a Brahmin was the toughest life. See, one should not have power, one should not hold on to money, you should spend all the life in control of sense organs and control of mind, you should be able to kshama. So all these, there are 9 categories which have been described. So they were obviously very few. It is that others could not become Brahmins. That's why they are not Brahmins. So it's very difficult even for us to pronounce these shlokas. So whereas the Brahmins have to recite by heart the Vedas, and they are supposed to only those who can by heart whole Vedas, they were supposed to be the head of the matas. So Adi Shankaracharya knew all 4 Vedas by heart. So all 4 Vedas, and what rule he has kept is to become a head of the mata, one should be able to recite all the respective Veda by heart. So that was the most toughest part. So anybody can become a Brahmin, but the problem was you should get up at Brahma Muhurtam in the morning, do the Veda recitation, and acquire knowledge, spread knowledge, don't hold on to money, don't hold on to power. So that was the most toughest part. So naturally, the number of Brahmins were too less. And secondly, similarly, Kshatriyas also. One should be able to kill or to get killed. One should be able to spill blood. So naturally, how many of us are willing to do this? Even in a country like India, when we have 130 plus crores population, hardly 50 lakh are doing this border. They're fighting at the borders or in the police department or in the political classes. They're less than 50 lakhs. So naturally, the population of Brahmana and Kshatriyas was naturally less. And even Vaishya also is not easy, because he has to invest and bear the losses if he makes any losses. Only hardly very few makes profit in businesses. So most happiest life, unlike what we are known to, what is popularly believed today, most happiest life was that of Shudras. So unlike what people believe and people spread today, and all these misinformation has been spread that they were being suppressed. It's not like that. So another point is this: based on guna, varna is allotted. Based on varna, karma is allotted. So that only when this karma is based on varna and gunam, then only vasana kshayam happens. So what is the idea of our rishis? Why they have described this varnas is, they want us to get over the vasanas. One cannot go and have a darshan of the king with all the dirty clothes and smelling person. He cannot go to the king. He will not be allowed in. He will not be allowed by the gatekeepers. Similarly, if you want to have a enlightenment of Paramatma, we cannot have the vasanas. We have to get vasana kshayam. So only when we do the work based on our guna, then only it undergoes vasana. We can undergo vasana kshayam, and we will be eligible for jnana yoga. And then, so this is the purpose of our rishis. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Srinivas. Again, we enjoyed looking at the word and getting the meaning. And unfortunately, we got a relatively easy one this time. But even that word meaning was something that we enjoyed. We now come to the Gita quiz. How does the quiz go? The quiz will be like this. So first I will show you the verse, and then if Dr. Halya is there, she will read the verse. The experts on the Gita will be silent initially and give a chance for everybody else to say, you know, when you look at a verse, you should be able to get the meaning of that verse. What is, because we have studied now, this is an important revision that we are doing. And therefore, when we are known that the whole next week, this is the topic, focus on this. So when you see a verse, you should not feel very strange. And then the key is always look at one word which will help you to remember. Ahalya, if you're there, will you read it for me?
Yes, sir. Hari Om. Yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajatyante kalevaram tam tamevaiti kaunteya sada tadbhava bhavitaha.
Open. What does it mean?
Those who remember.
Whatever you think of at the time of death, you start with it in the next birth.
Okay. Quiz now. What is the meaning of Kalevaram?
The dead body.
Death bed.
Good time.
Kalevaram means to drop the body. And Smaran.
Remember.
Okay. So it is fairly straightforward. So this is the 8th chapter where you are told about that how important it is to remember God at the time of death. Now remember, today, if those who listen to Swami Anubhavananda ji, he spoke a lot about how is their last thought when you go to sleep. You know, when you go to sleep, what is your last thought? If your last thought is on the roles that you play as man, woman, young, old, doctor, patient, then you will wake up in that role. But if you sleep as a nobody, then you merge into the Parabrahma, Paramatma very easily. So that is how the last thought when you go to sleep. So what we need to practice every day, remember God's name, utter God's name, and then finally remember that I am a nobody. That is Kalevaram. This body has to be dropped and that particular thought. Ahalya, please read this
Yes.
for me.
Krishna says that the next janma of the person will be determined by what the person remembers at the time of death. As a person thinks, so a person will become. This is a very powerful law. One's destiny is determined by the thought one has. Krishna extends this law to the next life also. Mundakopanishad declares that with whatever desire for object or environment a person dies, he will get the same object and environment in the next birth. Is it possible to think about only the Lord at the time of death? How can one know the time of his death? It is impossible to plan such an event. The thought of a person is determined by either his will or his habits, vasana. According to Krishna, the only way is to develop good habits, shubha vasana. The bitter truth is that the preparations or the rehearsal for death must start now.
And how does it start? Every morning is birth. Every evening onwards is like the evening of my life. I mean, don't think from a morbid angle, but each day when you wake up, remember, it is a new life. It is said every act of breathing in is life, every act of breathing out is death. In a way, we experience birth, death, birth, death, birth, death. And so the final death, when it comes, we have rehearsed it so many times, it is not going to be something difficult. So this is just, look at this verse, and Ahalya, please read it for me.
Abrahma bhuvanal lokaha punar avartinorjuna mam upetya tu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate.
Open. What does this verse say? Anybody now? Open.
Once you attain me, there is no rebirth.
Very good.
Yeah.
Upetya. Krishna is saying, those who reach me, there is no punarjanma for such a person. But all other lokas, that means even up to Brahma Loka, punar avartino. That means there is a return ticket. So you're going with a return ticket to all other lokas. But if you decide that you are going to identify with no body, with the Atma Tattva, which we are going to practice every night when we go to sleep. You know the three fingers, I'm not my body, gross body, subtle body, causal body, Rajas, Tamas, Sattva, waking, dream, deep sleep. You know, Mano, Buddhi, Hankara, Chittani, Naham. Then who am I? Chidananda Rupa, Shivoham, Shivoham. That is how you sleep each day. So this is the, can you read, Ahalya?
Yes, sir. All the worlds, O Arjuna, including the realm of the Brahma, are subject to return, but after attaining me, O son of Kunti, there is no rebirth, O Arjuna. The highest loka is Brahma Loka. Even that Brahma Loka cannot guarantee total security. One has to return back to the earth after enjoying life there. So Krishna tells Arjuna that if he pursues him, Ishvara, he will get permanent security. There is no question of returning to the finite after obtaining the infinite.
Each verse is so deep in its meaning. And
Can
each
this be a
verse,
Mahavakya?
how can there be a Mahavakya? I'm not able to see a
The
Mahavakya.
Jivatmas attaining to Paramatma.
I think it's a little far-fetched. No? Yeah, there is. I'm not able to see. Mam upetya. I mean, those who attain to me. In that way, okay. Maybe a little stretched. Those who obtain to me, mam upetya. Maybe we can take that. Good. Next, Ahalya.
Adhibhutam ksharo bhavaha purushashchadi daivatam adhiyagno ahamevatra dehe dehabritam varaha.
Okay, this is fairly simple. I'm going to ask questions only. What is this dehe dehabratam vara?
Residing in the body.
Okay, the embodied one, huh? Those who are embodied one. But what is the meaning of this dehe, deha, brata, vara, vara?
Means is the Shrestha among the embodied.
Shrestha. Who is the best among the embodied?
Adiyagna.
Jiva.
Who is the best among the embodied?
Adhyatma.
Paramatma.
No.
Arjuna. Perishable.
Arjuna. This is Arjuna.
Oh.
See, this is one of Arjuna's names. Deha Brata Vara. Deha Brata Vara. All right. Others are very simple. Who's Adi Bhutam?
Whatever is perishable is the
Very good. Who's Adi Devam?
Indweller.
indweller.
Wrong.
Consciousness.
Wrong.
Purusha is the indweller.
Cosmic being. Correct. Hiranyagarbha.
Who is
Who is Adi Yajna?
inside us.
Total consciousness plus Karanasha, causal body.
Bhagavan himself.
I am
Bhagavan.
the
Krishna.
Ishvara.
All right. Correct. Adi Yajna Ahameva. So Shri Krishna says that, you know, there is somebody who's speaking and somebody who's listening. And Krishna says, I am that. Now, again, this is open to discussion. I want you to verify, is this a Mahavakya? If Krishna says, I'm here within you, that means there is a certain Jivatma, Paramatma, Aikyam in this verse also. So consider this as a Mahavakya unless proved otherwise. All right. Ahalya, please read. I think this is fairly straightforward. I have explained Ksharabhave. That is,
Perishable.
Ksharabhavaha,
what is Ksharabhava? Adi
the
Bhutam.
perishable creation.
Yeah, Adi Bhutam.
Akshara and Kshara. Adhibhutam is Adhibhuta, the Cha Purushaha, Hiranyagarbha, Adidaivam is Adidaiva, Aham Eva,
Adi Yajna. The Ahameva here is Shri Krishna.
Deha Bratambara.
Yes.
Ahameva, I myself, Atra Dehe, who reside in this body, Adi Yajnaha, I am the Adi Yajna, Deha Bratambara of the embodied, O Arjuna.
Good. Please read the next verse for me.
Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyan Samanus Smaredyaha Sarvasya Dhatara Machintya Rupam Aditya Varnas Tamasah Parastat.
Okay, by looking at this, what is the meaning? Somebody can tell me.
This is the 13th verse in the
8. These are the attributes of Adiyagna.
Okay.
Kavim Puranam Anushasitaram Anoraniyam Anusmaridyam Sarvasra Dhataram Achintya Rupam.
Okay, Sukanya, we'll give you a chance later. Somebody else can tell me about this. You have answered, but what is all this?
Kavim is omniscient.
Very good. Omniscient means that which is all-knowing. So when you yes, continue.
Puranam is ancient one, ancient one.
Or beginningless.
Beginning. Anushasitaram is the ruler of everything, the whole world, master of the whole world.
All right.
Anoraniyan. Anoraniyan.
Samanus Smaredyaha.
Smaller than an anu.
Smaller than an anu.
Atom.
Correct. Correct. Smaller than
Sarvas,
that.
yeah. Sarvasya Dhataram is a
Supporter
supporter of
of all the forms.
all creation.
Achintya Rupam.
Sustainer of all. Achintya Rupam. That is, you cannot think of him.
In the form.
He is beyond imagination. Or
Correct.
Aditya Varnaha. He is like the sun.
effulgent.
Destroys darkness.
All right. I need an explanation on the last line. See, it says, I am that what we are talking about, that Brahman or that nature which has got all these 8 qualifications is Aditya Varanam, is like the sun, which means like consciousness, but it is not like the sun. The sun is Tamasaha Aparastat. I mean,
Parastat.
it is not. What do you
Yeah.
mean by
Swam-
tamasaha parastat?
Swamiji says sun cannot illuminate the darkness, whereas the Atma Shakti will illuminate even the ignorance in the jivas.
Wonderful. Give me an example.
Like sun cannot
I don't know.
told me
illuminate
that.
the ignorance.
Yeah. Now, what do you mean by the consciousness illumining darkness?
Means
Even
I
in the
know that
darkness,
I
we are
don't
going to
know.
feel
1%.
that we are there.
1%.
Even in the darkness, we can feel we are there, and we can experience ourselves.
No. That is
I am
not.
aware of.
I
I am
know
aware
that
of the
I
darkness.
don't know.
No, that is not the meaning.
I am aware of the darkness.
No,
I am
that
also
is not.
No,
No.
The
presence
darkness
of darkness.
light is negated.
Effulgent like the sun, but beyond darkness.
Yeah, what do you mean by
Deep sleep
beyond
state.
darkness?
that
See,
means
by beyond means, what is meant by beyond?
Para.
Para. What is meant by para? Parasta.
Shrestha. No.
Means
Unaffected by.
different.
You know, when you say beyond, that means he's like beyond corruption. He is not, corruption cannot contaminate such a person. So you have to give me a nice example to say how consciousness can illumine ignorance.
Deep sleep state.
No. See, it is like this. I know English. I do not know Chinese, but I know that I do
That
not
they
know.
don't know English.
Correct. That means
I know that I am ignorant.
very good. My consciousness can illumine my knowledge. My consciousness can illumine what I do not know, which the sun cannot do. That is the difference. Clear? Ahalya, please read
Yes.
the deeper meaning of this.
Yeah. One who thinks of the Lord at the time of death attains the Lord, who is omniscient, the ruler of all, subtler than the atom, the sustainer of all, incomprehensible, effulgent like the sun, and beyond ignorance. Krishna describes 8 attributes of the Lord, who is remembered by the Nishkama Bhakta at the time of death. From this, it is clear that a Nishkama Bhakta must know the scriptures to be familiar with these terminologies. Kavihi, he is omniscient and the all illuminating principle. Puranam, he is the most ancient one who is never created. Anushasitaram, one who gives karma palam. Anoraniyan, one who is subtler than the subtlest atom and one who is not available for sense perception. Sarvasya Dhataram, the Lord is the substratum, the support of creation. Achintya Rupam, incomprehensible and cannot be objectified by the mind. Aditya Varnam, he is bright like the sun that illuminates everything. Tamasaha Parastat, he is unaffected by darkness.
You should understand what is that tamasaha parastat. Now, one more thing, which means when we go to sleep, we have to see us with all these qualifications. And the nice thing is, mano buddhi hankara chittani naham. You can think of all this, what I am not, but then chidananda rupa shivoham shivoham. There is another nice mantra which says, it says, it is a very similar one. Why am I forgetting it? When I remember, I will tell you. Please.
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, regarding the Achintya
Yeah.
Rupam,
Hmm.
that is very the mind can only visualize attributes,
Yeah.
and this self is beyond the attributes.
Yeah.
So we have to have the grace of God, and we have to have bhakti in us to realize that, because with the mind is there is a limit. Just like Swamiji says, the best car cannot go over water. So the mind will never be able to understand, go beyond the attributes. So we have to have that bhakti bhav to go beyond and recognize the self
Correct.
and the grace of the God.
The mind is useful for anything objective. The mind cannot be useful for the subject. I, consciousness, can illumine my mind. I know what my mind knows, or I'm trying to struggle to explain something. But that mind can never know me. So it is a one-way traffic. Nityaha, Shuddhaha, Buddhaha, Muktaha, Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivaswarupaha. Next one, Ahalya, I'm rushing.
Yes. Yadaksharam Vedavido Vadanti Vishanti Yadyatayo Vitaragaha Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti Tatte Padam Sangrahena Pravakshye.
Meaning, other than the big five now, anybody else give others a chance? Such beautiful mantras are there in the 8th chapter. We call it an odd man out chapter. No? What are we talking about here? Let me see how many people have left or what?
Yadaksharam, that which is declared as the imperishable. Vedavido Vadanti, the people who know, who talk about this. Vishanti Yadyatayo Vitaragaha. Vitaragaha is desire free. The Yadyatayo Vitaragaha Yadichanto Brahmacharyam Charanti, for which, to get over that, for they practice the Brahmacharya. Tat Padam Sangrahena Pravaksha. I shall declare that in brief here. Tatte Padam, I shall declare that in brief here.
Agreed. Now, this is all about Omkara, no?
Yeah.
Now, who is the one who meditates upon this Omkara? So, now, those with all these qualifications, who goes into Brahmacharya? Now, I want to know, the question now is, there is one Upanishad where 50% of these words identical come from an important mantra of a particular Upanishad. A very key mantra in a particular Upanishad, 50% of the words are here.
Kathopanishad.
Kathopanishad.
Which mantra there? You're right, Kathopanishad. See, if you ask Bhagavad Gita verses from there, you can straight away say Kathopanishad, 90% you're right. So this is Kathopanishad. See, this is when the third boon which Nachiketa asks and Yamadharmaraja answers. And he will, he says that boon which people are looking for is this Om. And then that is the only place where Omkara comes in Upanishad. Every Upanishad brings Om, and the answer, I'll show you the actual verse. Please read the meaning of this particular verse, Ahalya.
I shall briefly declare to you that imperishable goal which the knower of the Vedas speak about, which the dispassionate sannyasis attain, and desiring which they live a life of brahmacharya. The experts in the Vedic scriptures call God Aksharam, absolute reality. The committed seeker, Yatayaha or sannyasis, pursues the Lord single-mindedly at the exclusion of everything else. These seekers, desirous of moksha, follow the life of brahmacharyam. In this context, brahmacharyam is the committed study of the scriptures. Please read the
Kathopanishad verse.
Sarve vedayat padam amananti tapamsi sarvani chayad vadanti yad icchanto brahmacharyam charanti tatte padam sangrahena bravimi om iti etat.
You will see the last two lines are the same. Yeah. And
yad icchanto brahmacharyam charanti.
Read this, please.
Sarve vedayat padam amananti, where padam means destination or ultimate goal. He says that all the Vedas uniformly declare that Brahman is the ultimate goal, one goal or lakshyam, padam. They talk about amananti and tapasmi sarvani cha yad vadanti. Yad icchanto, just a second, sir. Yad icchanto brahmacharyam charanti. These seekers take to a student's life once again, yad icchantaha, desiring that Brahman. Brahman is the real destination. Tatte padam sangrahena bravimi. If I have to tell it briefly.
Now, one more verse, please read.
परस्तास्मात् तु भावोऽन्यः अव्यक्तो व्यक्तात् सनातनः यः सर्वेषु भूतेषु नश्यत्सु न विनश्यति.
Meaning? Meaning, anybody?
I think he's talking about the consciousness factor.
Okay. Tell us.
And I think there is 2 references, but those references are too complex for me to elaborate.
Yeah. What is he talking about? Yeah, you're right. What is he? How does he come to consciousness here?
So I think one is in the reference of the unmanifested to the matter principle, which is, and I think the para and apara prakriti.
Okay.
And the second one is a little bit cryptic for me.
All right, good. But somebody else can improve on this.
Nothing is destroyed. It only goes into manifest and unmanifest form.
No.
Okay.
Other than the perishable matter
Okay.
and the unmanifest energy, there is
Very
another
good.
third entity, which is the
Very
consciousness.
good. Very good, Sukanya. That's the answer. Now,
Thank you.
now I'm going to ask you another question. Exactly the same verse, exactly the same meaning is given somewhere else where we have studied thoroughly. Exactly.
Chapter 15.
Very good, Kiran. What does it say?
That etas aksharamatito akshara.
Very good. See,
Dvaumau purisho kshara.
Absolutely. In this world, there are 2 things, he says. One is kshara and one is the akshara. And then he says there is one more third thing. That is this vinashyati, that which cannot be destroyed. You know, there is one more thing, and that is the Purushottama. Okay, we'll go slowly on this. So, Ahalya, please read this for want of time. I'm not going word by word. Please read.
However, beyond that unmanifest, there is another unmanifest being which is eternal. It does not perish when all beings perish. In this verse, Krishna points out that there is another goal beyond these finite manifest and non-manifest states. He refers to the consciousness principle as the non-manifest, that is beyond these. The consciousness is the witness of both the manifest and the non-manifest matter principle.
See, the verse in Kathopanishad is, can you read?
Uttamaha purushastvanya paramatmetyudahritaha yo lokatrayamavishya vibhatyar avyaya ishvaraha.
So here also he's talking about saying other than that manifest and the unmanifest, there is a third thing, which is the imperishable Lord. So you will see a connection between all these. Okay, we'll go to the final one. Please read this for me.
Sir, this imperishable Lord is consciousness, sir?
Absolutely. That is what he is talking about. Uttama Purusha of the 15th chapter. This is the same. 8th chapter is talking about Uttama Purusha. 8th chapter talks about Omkara. You know, so many verses. Normally we think it's an odd man out chapter, all about death and all that. But we've got a nice message about remembering God before you sleep every day. Remembering, you know, all our upasanas were in the early morning before you get up, all that karagre vasate. Now we make one more sadhana of remembering God before you sleep, because we are practicing our death every day.
Sir, Param elsewhere also says that unmanifest consciousness is Sat and manifest is Chit. He explains one. How do we relate that to this, sir?
Unmanifest consciousness is Chit and manifest consciousness is Sat.
No. Yeah.
That is also true. See, when you say, you know, I am, when consciousness and existence have come together, when you wake up in the morning, there is a separation. What appears is existence, and what is the one who's seer is consciousness. That is one way. But the usual classification is about manifest world and the unmanifest world. The unmanifest world is Maya. The manifest world is the whole creation. So this is Kshara and Akshara, very well described in the 15th chapter, which has come in the 8th chapter. I want you to go through these verses once again and, underline these points. Finally, there's the last verse for today. Please read, because we're running out.
Avyaktokshara ityuktaha tamahuhu paramam gatim yam prapya na nivartante tadhama paramam mama.
Please tell us.
This unmanifest and
Sukanya, no, Sukanya. Anybody else, please tell. We have given you 1 week's time to prepare for this chapter. Avyakto. Fairly straightforward, I think.
Paramam gatim is the highest goal. Avyakto akshara, the unmanifest and the imperishable. Ityuktaha tamahuhu paramam gatim. That they say is the highest goal, paramam gatim. The unmanifest and the imperishable is said to be the highest goal.
Okay.
Yam prapyana nivartante, having reached that, never again nivartante, tadhama paramam mama. That is my highest abode.
All right, I'm going to give marks for somebody who's going to give me the full verse in the Bhagavad Gita, which has the same line. Tadhama paramam mama. Na nivartante. There is no coming back. Na nivartante tadhama paramam mama. Very famous.
Also in 15th chapter.
Very good. Tell me the verse.
19th, 18th, 19th.
But tell me the verse. 15th chapter, agreed. It is not 19th, Kiran.
17.
Okay, very strangely, it begins in the beginning of the...
Nathat bhasayate surya.
Very good, Sundar. Continue. Nathat bhasayate surya.
Nasashango na pavaka yatgatva na nivartante tadhama paramama.
Look at that. Okay, very good. Please, Ahalya, read this.
The manifest being is said to be the imperishable one. Scriptures declare that being to be the supreme goal. That is the supreme abode of mind, attaining which they do not return. The consciousness principle is also known as the imperishable. Accomplishing such Brahman is the real goal. Liberation is not going to any place. It is attaining Brahman here and now. Reaching Brahman, one does not return. It is impossible to reach Brahman, who is beyond time and space, only through the wisdom that Brahman is never away and will never be away from one. One reaches Brahman by claiming him as himself. Through knowledge, one drops the notion that Brahman is away.
So wonderful, no? This is the verse. Natad bhasayate surya na shashanko na pavaka yad gatva na nivartante tadhama paramam. So very good for those who remembered. And with that, we come to the end of today's